So you did a Broadway show, right? It was When My Soul Speaks.
And if I can tell you, Greg, this made my knees knock and my teeth chatter. I don't recall being this nervous in over 20 years.
Today, we'll be exploring the unique genius of Lisa Nichols. She's one of the world's most sought-after motivational speakers. She's the founder and CEO of Motivating the Masses and has helped millions of her clients through that organization. She also has various philanthropic pursuits, helping hundreds of thousands of teens. She's been interviewed by Larry King Live, Oprah, spent time with Nelson Mandela, written many wonderful books, and above all is just a wonderful human being and an amazing storyteller. I'm really excited. I was an absolute honor spending time with her today and really excited to share this with you. So, just quickly, the first time I saw you speak was at Archangel. It was in Toronto. You came on stage and I think you must have spoken for about an hour, but it felt like minutes because the whole audience, myself included, we laughed, we cried, we were inspired and motivated. It was just a phenomenal experience for me and everyone around me. And I heard afterwards, so thank you for that, first of all, but I heard afterwards that you didn't do a lot of prep for it, which is sort of counterintuitive to what I hear from a lot of the top end, most amazing, most sought after public speakers, that you had just been doing this so much that you're able to go out and tell stories and inspire and really move and fit to the crowd, because it did feel like you were sort of responding to what you were getting back from the audience. So I'm curious. One, is there some truth to it? And then others, like, what advice do you have for those like us, others who are trying to make our speaking more inspiring, motivational, interesting, in our regular careers?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for that acknowledgement. It means a lot to me. And I don't take any acknowledgement of my skill set or my impact for granted, ever. And secondly, it's part true. So no, I didn't do very much preparing for that message. While I did research the event, I researched the theme, I researched my topic title, and more importantly, there are three answers that I had going into that keynote. And I recommend that for every time you speak, whether it's video or whether it's live, that you have these three answers. And this guides and curates the conversation, whether prepped or not. And that is, what did I want the audience, or what did my host want the audience to feel when I was done? So knowing how you want your audience to feel, knowing what you want your audience to think about themselves or about a possibility, and what action step do you want your audience to do? So how do you want them to feel? How do you want them to think? And what do you want them to do? If I reverse engineer and find those answers first, then I create the message that leads to that outcome. And I can't say you'll hit the nail every time, but man, you'll get really close when you don't. So I knew that. I interviewed our event host and the curator, and I interviewed him and I said, what do you want them to feel when I'm done? What do you want them to do? Now, the rest, because most speakers still have to curate the content and practice the content, the rest I delivered in what I call my science of speaking tools. And the reason why I say that is because for years, people have been asking me, how do you do what you do? Show me how to do it. And I honestly, Greg, I didn't know how to show anyone because it was a gift in me. And then one year during my prayer time, I do a lot of prayer in November, I just heard the Spirit say, what's your gift can be someone else's skill set. Go figure out how to teach them. So I created these tools of what I call unforgettable speaking. There's speaking, and then there's unforgettable speaking. And so what I did that day with you and to you is I did several techniques. So I'll give a couple to you. So I did this technique called audience connection formula. Now it's going to seem kind of weird now that I'm telling you, because you can literally go, I remember that, right? So I did an audience connection formula where I used me, then I said we, then I said you. So I said, there was a time when we have a tendency to. Have you ever had a time when you, and I literally, Greg, did that over and over and over again. Why? Because when I do me, we, you, what I call the audience connection formula on my campus, I immediately make us feel like we're a tribe.
Right.
So all of a sudden, we're gelling together faster. We're climbing together. I'm not on the mountaintop. Old school speaking has the speaker on the mountaintop saying, come up to the top of my mountain. The atmosphere is good up here. Be like me and you'll be a great person. And that day is over. We're now into social climbing. So social climbing says, I've climbed the mountain, but let me come and climb beside you.
Wow.
The
I love
mountain
that.
that I've already climbed. So I was doing some tools there when I walked in the audience. That was called disruptive audience technique, disruptive proximity. I did this thing called a valley. You'll remember this. The valley is when I took you into one of my stories, a hard time in my life, but the valley has structure to it. That's how I got in and out fast, and I didn't get stuck in just telling you my story. Most speakers are scared to go in the valley because you often get stuck in the valley because they don't know the technique to come out. So I really did about 16 techniques on you that day, all very clear techniques. And once I know the techniques, like my students and you, if you were to learn them, you now have the freedom to just flow with the audience and connect because you're going from formula to formula to formula to formula. And when you put the formulas together, I call it making lasagna. Now you have a great dish called experience. And so you really experience organic structure. I have structure and a system, and now I get to be organic and spontaneous and more free. And I really pray that more speakers move to that style so that you don't have to rehearse as much. You don't have to prep as much. You have a chance to see the people in the audience and then dance with them, vibe off their vibe, feel their energy. It'll make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and it'll take you in a direction for a moment, and then you come back. But they could feel that that moment was for them. Remember that young man who I held his hand and he stood up? Do you remember that moment? It was a young man, and it was our moment. What did that mean to him?
Right. I love that. It's interesting because you said your gift can be someone else's skill set. And it's funny because I think that can be so applicable for a lot of people who are sharing what they're good at, in that, one of the first things I taught was it was standardized tests. So it was really meant to be not something you can learn, right? It's just checking how good are you at a thing. But I was over time able to figure out, okay, why am I good at it and how can I teach it to others? But that actually made me better at it too, because I was able to then apply not just I don't know why I can do this. It's like, no, I can see what I'm doing here and share it with others. So I love that model. It's great especially for teaching and sharing.
Yeah, I appreciate you having that realization because that was mine. Like for years, and when I tell you people who ask me to teach them how to do what I do, sometimes it was disruptive, Greg, because they were my mentors. Like the first person that asked me was Jack Canfield. And I'm like, what? And then other leaders in the industry, I was like, what do you mean? And I realized the highest level of responsibility is learning how to teach someone what you naturally have so that it doesn't die in you. And I was very clear. I did not want the impact of moving someone at a cellular level. I didn't want it to go away with me. And I'm not saying I'm the only one that can do it, but those of us who can move people across culturals, across gender, across religion, we have a global impact. That room is small. And I believe that it's my responsibility, at least, to take my gift and help it be someone else's skill set. Because now it doesn't die with me. It doesn't go away when I sit down.
So you did a Broadway show, right? It was When My Soul Speaks.
Yes. I don't even know if I have so can I just be so bold as to, I had this up before you came on. I had this up. I'm going to change my background and be really crazy for a moment, but it's the background that I've kept up.
Yeah.
Like
Nice.
it's been my background because I cannot believe that I actually did it. So
And it was, I can't imagine, it must have been tough because it was you and you're sharing so many stories from your life. Uh, yeah, I was wondering if there were, one or two stories from that show that you'd mind sharing with us that you felt were impactful.
yeah, well, first
Yeah,
of all,
yeah,
thank you. And it was scary.
yeah,
And I was terror-sighted, part terrified, part excited.
yeah.
As one of my students, Dr. Delicia, coined on our campus, I I wanted to find out what would stretch Lisa Nichols today.
Hmm.
I don't want to sit in my my middle or sit in my last year's best or my 2020 best. And because it's inspiring and impressing other people, I stopped chasing my next better best.
Right.
So I sought for something that would make my knees knock. And if I can tell you, Greg, this made my knees knock and my teeth chatter. I was saying on my way to Broadway, I don't recall being this nervous in over 20 years.
Oh,
But it
wow.
was a one-woman show for 2.5 hours. And I took a journey in my life and I shared the story of I shared the story of um, wanting to fit in and how I struggled because I'm functionally dyslexic. I didn't know that I was functionally dyslexic until I was 25. So fitting in was a challenge for me. And so I told the story of being bused to the valley,
Hmm.
and that's where African American kids were bused to all white schools for a better education. My family and I were very excited. And when I got to the Valley, I was ostracized because of my nationality, my culture, my hair, my lips. Everything about me was instantly wrong. I was told God dropped me in a tar pit, God left me in the oven too long. My hair is used to scrub pots and pans because it's so rough. And all of a sudden, I was introduced to what was wrong about me. I didn't know that before because I was my daddy's little princess and I was beautiful. And so I tried out for Charlie's Angels.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure if you remember Charlie's Angels. I mean
Yeah,
the OG Charlie's Angels. I don't mean
yeah,
the new Charlie's. Nothing
yep,
against the new Charlie's Angels,
yep.
but I'm talking Farrah Fawcett. I'm talking about the OG. So I tried out for Charlie's Angels and the Bionic Woman. I don't know if you remember the Bionic Woman, Lindsay Wagner.
Hmm.
Oh my God, she was the epic of all women. This is who we all wanted to be like. And I remember there were 40 girls in the tryouts, and I was the only little chocolate drop in the tryouts, only brown girl in the tryouts, which I was fine with.
Hmm.
And I remember how much it meant for me to be accepted. Like now I'm going to be accepted. Now they're not going to ostracize me. Now they're going to invite me to sit with them at lunch, and everything was riding on me being a Charlie's Angels or the Bionic Woman. I was excited. And so I went to bed early the night before tryouts at recess. I got up early. I ate eggs. I had to get up extra early to eat eggs, but eggs were protein and I needed my protein because I needed to be selected. So as the 40 girls started on the 100-yard dash, they said, "Runners to your mark, get set, go." And I'm running, 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 running. When I crossed the finish line, I looked back and there was only two girls just hitting the halfway mark. I won. Lisa Nichols wins event number one. Yes, I'm so excited. For every other girl, this was just about being in a girl group. For me, this was about having friends again. See, I had friends before I left South Central Los Angeles, where I lived. I lived in South Central Los Angeles between the Harlem Crip 30s and the Rolling 60s, and those are not cheerleading squads. Those were
Yeah.
gangs. But I said, now I want to fit in here in the Valley. I want to fit in with my new friends. And so the second event came. This event was the Roll, Stop, and Freeze Sucker event. And we had to roll on hot asphalt, Greg. And so everyone got on that hot asphalt, and the 20 girls that were still left in the competition, they squealed and they squirmed and they messed up the ending. But when I got down there, I did my roll, stop, and freeze sucker. I even threw my hair aside. I was perfect. I knew exactly. I did my side turn. Lisa Nichols wins event number 2. Yes, yes, yes. I'm one step closer. I'm one step closer to not having to lie to my mom when she asked me what kind of day did I have. And did I have a good day at school? I'm one step closer to not feeling ugly. So when the last event came, and this event was to confirm you were the bionic woman and you could do what she did, we had to jump over a chair. And every little girl that was now left, now there's about 15 girls left. Every girl that's now left, they just kind of walked up and jumped haphazardly. Several of them didn't even clear the chair. Their foot got caught on the chair and they went down. There were a lot of visits to the dentist that day. But when I went down, I bent down, and I did something that they weren't expecting when I came up. I added sound effects. I jumped completely over the chair. I land on the other side, and I had to do extra on the other side. I confused them with the Wonder Woman stand. I did my Wonder Woman stand, looked to the side, and they said, Lisa Nichols wins event number 3. That's 3 out of 3. I'm down. That's 3 out of 3. I'm in. That's 3 out of 3. Life is about to get better. 8 of us stood on the finish line, looking at the judges, 3 women and 1 little boy. I guess he represented Charlie. And we're looking there anticipating. I wasn't worried. I'd already won all 3 events. I was just wondering who were going to be my other super sister soldiers in my girl crew. Mm-hmm. So when they said winner number 1, Diane. Okay, I got 2 more chances. Winner number 2, Sheila. Okay. Winner number 3, Kira. Okay, it's okay. It's okay. I didn't make it for the Charlie's Angels. It's okay. I wanted to be the bionic woman anyway. And the bionic woman is Linda. I thought maybe they had pronounced my name wrong until I saw Linda running past me, screaming. And as I looked at the new girl group dancing and squealing and high-fiving each other, Charlie's Angels and the Bionic Woman, I realized that I wasn't going to get picked. I eventually, Greg, mustered up the courage to go over to the judges and ask, what happened? I won every single event. I beat in the race. I rose, stopped, and I froze. I jumped over the chair. What happened? And they looked at each other and they said, yeah, you did win, Lisa, but you did win, but think about it like this. Which Charlie's Angels do you look like? And you don't look like the Bionic Woman. You could never be one. But
oh, wow.
if you look more like them next year, try out then. I remember walking away, and Greg, that was the first time I heard her. I nicknamed her Shady. And she had been lurking around my head before, but I never knew her as loudly. I never heard her as loudly as I heard her this day. She came pouncing inside my space, and I began to hear who I nicknamed Shady say to me in my head, who did you think you were anyway, Lisa, to try out? What did you think would happen? Look at you. The Charlie's Angels are long and thin with fluffy, feathery hair, and you are not thin, and you are not light, and your hair is not feathery. You didn't even have the right to get in the race. You'd never win. Stay in your place. Stay in your place. And that day was the day I began the first time I could feel myself angry about my complexion. I was sad that my hair was kinky. I was frustrated that I had full lips and mad at God that I had round hips. But worse than that, I was ashamed of how I looked. I became ashamed of everything that made me me. And I remember looking through the window, Greg, not the metaphoric window. A lot of it I did at recess and at lunch while watching Charlie's Angels and the Bionic Woman run around. I began to look through the window at other people's lives that didn't look like me and didn't come from where I come from, asking the question, the unfair question, why? Why me? Why not me? Why do I not get to have that life that way? And that began the journey. 18 years later, I'm in church. I'm delivering what would be one of my first keynotes. It was a poem that day. And I remember walking down off the stage, and 3,000 people were in the audience, Greg, and 3,000 people were patting me on my shoulders. I'm literally I'm in my mid 20s, and they're patting me on my shoulders and they're telling me, job well done, you were amazing. And all of a sudden I hear this most familiar voice ever while this hand was placed on my shoulder. Lisa, you were awesome. And I turn around and look, and I'm looking face to face with television's bionic woman, Lindsay Wagner. And immediately, Greg, I began to tell her, I won all the races. I jumped over the chair like you do, and I made the sound do 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 do, and they didn't. And I began to cry as if it were yesterday, showing us how far we have been carrying our baggage. And I shared with her my fears and my hurt, and I wasn't chosen. And they said it, and she looked at me and she goes, sweetheart, I'm an actress. I live in Hollywood. You, based on your story, you're the true bionic woman. And that day I gave myself permission to let that be my history. I gave myself permission to sit down that shame. That was one of the stories on stage.
Wow, I'm supposed to ask you another question now, but I'm pretty choked up. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank
Wow.
you for receiving it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I can't imagine. I have no lived experiences like that. Thank you for sharing.
I appreciate that acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And I think what my Broadway show was about, every mountain I had to climb behind the scenes that no one knew about to choose to stand on that stage that you met me on. And all of us have had to climb our mountains. And I wanted to share what resiliency looks like without ever saying the word resiliency. I wanted to show determination in the story and not
Mm-hmm.
have to say determination. I wanted to give a picture to non-negotiable. People ask, how do you become non-negotiable? And it's not a lotion. It's
Mm-hmm.
not shea butter. It's not a protein drink. It doesn't come in a protein powder. It
Mm-hmm.
comes in a million small pieces, Greg. A million small moments that make you make a choice. Am I going to stop now or am I going to keep going? Am I going to ask permission to be the person I know myself to be? Or
Mhm.
am I going to give notice? Am I going to politely whisper that I'm coming? Or am I going to ask you to hold on, bear down, because I'm a tsunami this year? I wanted to show people that there was zero magic in the making of Lisa Nichols. Zero magic in the making.
So long way from there. And, since then you've helped millions of people and thousands of teens through your philanthropic charitable pursuits. Where are you going from here? Like when you look, you talked about the Broadway show being, you didn't, I love that concept, by the way, of like this year you didn't want to sort of rest on your laurels or like do what was great last year. Where do you go? What's your vision for the future?
I love that you asked because it makes me put on my Dora the Explorer hat, turn on the light and be like, hey. And I am an explorer. I
Mhm.
am a visionary. I'm a new frontiers kind of girl.
Mhm.
So I don't ever want to keep redoing the previous version of my best. I'm not interested in that. Even if other people say, wow, I'm grateful that you're inspired by my bio, but I want to be
Mhm.
inspired by my future. Oh,
Yeah.
I made that word up. It's not a really word, but futuro. So I love what you said earlier, Greg. You said, how does someone like me do something like that? Because that's my next season. My
Mhm.
entire season, this next season, I'm in my legacy years. Let's
Mhm.
just be honest. I've been doing this 27 years now. I'm in my legacy years. I am now considered the big sister, or the auntie in the industry. I was at an event recently in Estonia, and then I went to an event in Dubai. And in both countries, back to back, they called me a legend, a living legend. And I went, okay, and I'm not offended by that because
Yeah.
that's hours in the game. It's
Yeah.
not age. And if it was
Mhm.
age, I'm happy to be the age I am, but it really is hours in the game and
Mhm.
it's respect, right? So if that's me, then
Mhm.
let me in my legacy years leave as many instructions, breadcrumbs. Let me pull the curtain back and expose as many systems, as many pathways to touch your better best. So I love your opening question because the season I'm in is all I want to do is help people who are already leading lead more powerfully. That's all I want to be busy doing. I don't necessarily need to touch the front end person anymore. I want to touch the person responsible for touching them. Because if I help 100 people who all touch 1 million people, then I can touch 100 million people because in some way I've imparted something to them. So I want to help gladiators gladiate in this season. So I teach particularly in my small intimate groups, the only place that I lead,
Mhm.
only people who have platforms are in those rooms. So, and then I go out and I have programs that other people go into. But in my retreats, I'm doing one this weekend at my house. In my retreats, everyone in the retreat, their job in the world is to inspire people. That's their calling. That's what they do. And all I do is help them make these notch moves and turn up their dial, turn up their impact, turn up their impressions, turn up their unforgettable, turn up their income, turn up their passion, turn up their calling. All I do is help them turn everything up. And then I like to walk with them for a while to watch them do it and to lovingly and safely hold them accountable to the person they're becoming, not to the person they've been. And so that's what I love doing now. And I do it in different formats. I do it in small groups, but I
Mhm.
also just yesterday I was recording another program. People can't believe that I do so much hands-on work still, but I shot 15 videos yesterday because I don't want anyone else to teach the techniques but me because I know how they're downloaded. I know what to tell you to look for. I know how to tell you to do that pregnant pause. I know how to tell you to hold that space on stage. Don't
Mhm.
be afraid to hold that silence for a second. Let it land. And so I really get excited about that because honestly, there's going to be a time in the not so near future, but future, that I'm going to retire to really serve in villages in third and emerging countries. And I want to serve, uh, probably about 10 years from now, I want to sit in villages, people who will never turn on a computer and sit face to face with mothers and fathers and daughters and sons. And so I got a lot of work to do before I do that. I want to leave everything that you saw on that stage, that feeling that you saw, that
Mhm.
stir in your belly, that stir in your soul. I literally had you doing this because you're
Yeah.
the next version of you felt a midwife coming. I'm gonna be honest. Like I know that sounds crazy. I know I talk in these crazy parables, but there's a version of you
Mhm.
that felt a midwife in the room saying,
Mhm.
"Come on, I'm calling you out. There's no room for you to stay in his body. I'm
Mhm.
calling you out." And everything in your essence that challenged that next version of you to be born was stimulated,
Mhm.
activated. And I'm committed in this season to continue learning how to help you do that as well. So two of us are doing it. Then four of us are doing it. And then eight of us are doing it. I don't want to be an anomaly. I have no interest in being an anomaly. I want a movement of
Yeah.
people that are doing this thing, but I want them black, white, Asian, Latina. I want them he, she, they. I want them 24 and 64. I want them in different countries. And I'm wild enough to believe that it can happen.
So for people, I mean, I know for myself, so many others, there are so many avenues that we can speak in or become better at speaking, whether it's even just in our professional careers, opportunities we have, or for those of us who are more into actually getting on stage or teaching. Is like, where would we start in terms of, or would be a good place to learn more from you in terms of becoming better at that?
Yeah, so I'm excited that you asked that question because I love, 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 pulling back the curtain and showing people just little nuances. So I'm doing an impactful speakers blueprint 3-day free event. And in that, I'll actually show you what I've created as the science of impactful speaking. So I'll show you the different techniques. And before we finish, you'll learn actually two of those techniques that you can apply immediately. And it's not just as a speaker, it's as
Mhm.
any leader who wants to have impactful speaking when they open their mouths. So I'll show you how to make every word count, how to increase the impact when you open your mouth, and then to show you the blueprint. And then most of all, what I love is most speakers don't know that there are four types of speakers.
Mhm.
And you may not even know that there are four different types of speakers. And because I didn't. And when I began to study that, I realized most speakers are mislabeling themselves and comparing themselves to a different type of speaker than the type of speaker they are. So they always lose by comparison. So
Mhm.
I'm going to help you find out what type of speaker you are so that you understand the path of learning you want to go on. And then I'm going to teach you some of the science and the techniques. And we'll do that over 3 days. And so it's an event that I love. It's free.
Mhm.
You'll have the link. I would love for anyone here to come. It's the Impactful Speakers Blueprint, and I'm happy to share that with you.
Great. Thank you so much. And I know, coming from someone like yourself, who's not only a phenomenally gifted speaker, but is also great at actually codifying and teaching it and helping others become great at it. That's exciting. I'll check it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's our regular company name, motivatingthemasses.com/thinkific. And they'll have access to come and join us for free.
That's wonderful. Sounds like you've got more than just the next season planned out. The next couple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, so many places we could go, and I'd love to ask questions. But one, just reading through everything you've done, right? You've had so many opportunities to spend time with some amazing people, Nelson Mandela, Oprah. I mean, and I'm sure many, many others in your life. Is there one that stands out, or a moment that stands out? Someone you've met who's had a huge inspiring impact on you. I know you've had that on so many others, but
Mm,
who's been inspiration for you?
I appreciate that. What's funny is the people that have helped to shape me the most, that inspire me the most, no one knows them. They weren't any big name folk,
Mhm.
so And I always tell people, and they say, "Who's your mentor?" And I say, "Oh, I'm an eclectic piece of work. I'm a mutt. I'm a mutt. I'm a mutt because I believe I was smart enough to grab my nuggets from the whoever was supposed to be my teacher in the moment. And I was hungry, Greg, and I still am. I was hungry to see who this chick could be. Because
Mhm.
I got fired from 5 jobs in my 20s. I failed out of college. I my my math teacher in high school said he was giving me a D in math because I was nice and
Mhm.
because I tried hard, not because I passed math. My speech teacher in my freshman year of college, before I flunked out and got kicked out because my father and my mother couldn't afford for me to stay in college, my speech teacher said, quote unquote,
Mhm.
"Miss Nichols, I recommend you get a desk job and never speak in public. It is not the path for you."
Wow.
So, Greg, when you ask who who inspired me, I feel like when I touched 31, when
Mhm.
I touched 31, I was still so confused. I was I was so confused because the imaginary baby in my belly
Mhm.
said, "You're supposed to inspire people.
Mhm.
You're supposed to inspire people verbally and in writing." But nothing in my physical life agreed with that.
Right.
I just want you to get, just for a moment, if you can just take a picture. I, nothing agreed with the vision
Yeah.
of me that I had in my head. So
Mhm.
I felt, oh, this brings tears to my eyes. I felt more tormented
Mhm.
with my thoughts than I was encouraged by them because nothing agreed with it. And no one in my physical space agreed with it. I got a fail in English, and my English teacher in college said in front of the entire classroom, "You have to be the weakest writer I've ever met in my entire life."
Mhm.
So when I had the feeling that I wanted to write a book, the first thought I had was the English teacher. When everything in me kept saying, "Speak and inspire," the first thought I had was my speech teacher. So when I met this woman in Flint, Michigan, and I was doing this teen workshop for motivating the teen spirit, my foundation. And this woman just happened to be invited to the graduation. I did the workshop in a church basement. The church paid me $5,000 to do a 3-day workshop. And this woman walked up to me and said, "I believe you are the solution to the pain that our children are feeling." I hooked my caboose to that woman. And I went back to Flint 5 times a year in the dead of snow. I'm from California, so we're not used to snow. In the dead of snow, I would go and sit at that woman's dining room table. And you know what I would ask her, Greg? I would look her in the eyes. I gotta be dramatic here, so I gotta take you closer. I would look her in the eyes and I would say, "Tell me again who you see when you look at me." And she would tell me. And that beautiful woman, someone's mother, someone's grandmother, she would see in me what I didn't see in myself. When I got the contract to do chicken soup for the African American Soul, I was so afraid because I didn't know where the commas went, or the period went, or the semicolon went. Because I wasn't strong at grammar, she would remind me, "You're a strong storyteller. Just tell the story and let the editor handle the grammar." When I was invited to do The Secret, and I'm looking at all these brilliant people who are in The Secret, and I'm a college dropout, she reminded me that The Secret was the law of attraction. The Secret was ask, believe, receive. The Secret was about unwavering faith. And she looked me in my face and she leaned in, Greg, and she said, "Do you have faith?" And I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "Then go do The Secret. You belong with them." And so I don't have a lot of celebrity people that you might know. I have my grandmother who said constantly, "Baby girl, your conviction and your convenience will not live on the same block. Are you going to choose your conviction or will you choose your convenience? Decide which one you're going to live in, because your conviction will always cost you something." No one knows my grandma, but I promise you, she's the reason why I stand today. She's the reason why I serve from my overflow today. She said, "Baby girl, it's no one else's responsibility to fill your tank. Everyone is going to stand in line to be served by you." And we call it prophesying. She says, "I'm a prophesied over your life. You are going to inspire millions." She told me this at 19.
Wow.
You are going to inspire millions. I'm telling you now. She said, "So I need you to remember this. You are always going to have a long line of people to be served by you. It's your responsibility to put yourself at the front of your own line. Your self-care is not selfish. It is your responsibility to your future." So I'm a mutt. I'm a lot of wise people who saw in me what I didn't see in myself yet. And they poured into the woman I was becoming, and they spoke to her, and they nurtured her out. They required her. They required little Lisa to get out of the way so big Lisa can show up. And I'm grateful, and I can rattle off names, but you won't know any of them. And while I was wildly inspired by Oprah, and I want to tell you this one thing. I was wildly inspired by Oprah, but I took to the Oprah show my grandmother. And I figured my grandmother picked cotton in a cotton field when she was 10. So my grandmother should go to the Oprah show and see a Black woman on the biggest stage ever, and then her granddaughter being interviewed by this icon of a woman who was full figured like most women of color who are made to believe we're not beautiful in our skin. And so I took my grandmother with me. And Greg, the morning of going to the Oprah show, I get a phone call and they say the Harpo Inc. limo is outside waiting for you. I shared this story on Broadway too. And I said, "Grandma, it's time to go. We're about to go to Oprah." And I grabbed my coat and I grabbed my purse. And my grandmother gave me this disapproving look. She said, "Go make your bed." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I sit down my purse, I take off my coat, and I go and I make up my bed. I'm like, "Okay, I'm making up her bed." And I go back out and I put my coat on again. And I say, "Come on, Grandma, let's go." And she gives me another disapproving look. She says, "Go wipe out the sink basin." Go wipe out the sink basin. And she yells from the other room, "Wipe out the second sink basin too." I didn't even use that sink basin, right? Okay. I go in the living room and my grandmother says, "Now leave the housekeeper a tip." I said, "But I just did her job." She said, "Leave her a tip." And I could see, Greg, this face. Like it wasn't the proud grandmama's face that I was used to. We are at Oprah. I'm about to take you to the Oprah show. So I said, okay. So I pull a little money out I leave a tip on the counter and she looks at me and says, "You make a lot of money. Leave her a bigger tip." I go a little deeper in my purse. I leave her a tip and I said, "Grandma, no disrespect, but I'm just curious because I knew something was happening. I knew something was in her disposition. Something was on her heart that was bigger than this moment. It was bigger than making the bed. It was bigger than wiping off the, but I didn't know what it was." I said, "Grandma, just out of curiosity, why did I make the bed? And why did I wipe out the sink basin? And why did I leave the housekeeper a tip?" And she said, "Because, Lisa, your great great grandmother was a day worker, or as you know it, a housekeeper." She said, and people would leave their homes and their rooms extra nasty when they knew she was coming. She said, "You're not going to do that. You're going to do right by us." She said, "I know you think that you're walking on this plush carpet. And I know you think you're walking on the soles of those fancy shoes." She said, "But you're not walking on just this carpet. And you're not walking on just the soles of your shoes." She said, "We clean these hotels knowing that we would never be invited to be a guest in our lifetime, but praying that hopefully in your lifetime you will be a guest." She said, "So you're not walking on this carpet. You're walking on our shoulders. And you're going to do right by us. You're going to represent every single one of us in the highest way possible." She said, "And you left that woman a tip because every time your great great grandmother got a tip, we got to eat meat that day." She said, "So when you walk out that door, you walk out that door representing the entire allegiance called your ancestors who prayed one day a little brown girl could stay at the Omni Hotel where the guests of Oprah Winfrey stay and head out to a studio where another little brown girl can have a dignified conversation in front of millions." She said, "So your ancestors are counting on you. Do right by us." And that was the last thing she told me before I left out the door going to the Oprah show. So you can only imagine what it felt like sitting
Yeah.
in the Harpo Inc. limo and arriving at the door. It was all of a sudden, Oprah was the icing on the cake, but that my grandmother and my ancestors, they were the cake.
Wow. Amazing. She sounds like an amazing woman. And
Wow.
yeah, so glad you found people to overwrite Miss Shady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The entire time on the stage, when I would go and become shady, I would walk to the edge of the I would walk to the edge of the stage and they would turn a red light on. And I would put on a red veil and I would turn back and look at myself. And I would become this inner shadow because it was important, Greg, for me to expose
Mm.
my inner negative self-talk on this entire journey to be me and to keep being me. And it was a powerful and disruptive visual to see me become, almost to the point that during the show, every time they saw me walking over to that corner and the red light beaming, everyone would begin to brace themselves
Oh.
because they knew Shady was coming. Yeah, it was powerful.
Well, I can't say how much I appreciate you sharing all these stories with us. It's I could sit and ask you about your life for hours, but I really, yeah, appreciate so much all that you've shared, and I know so many people listening will as well. Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to have what I like to call a soul-riching conversation. I believe that we're in the season where we don't want to have snorkeling conversations. We need to have scuba diving
Yeah,
conversations,
good
right?
good metaphor.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
don't keep me at the top. You know, all things are at stake these days. Take me deep within. And so I honor you. I'd love ways to stay connected and to find ways to put our superpowers together. And any way that I can serve you while I'm in these legacy years, um, I realize that as much as the first
Mm,
20 years were rich for me, these next 10 to 15 years, when
mm,
I'm working with gladiators and
mm,
change agents and unicorns to do and be more of
mm,
us, now I understand the entire journey uh, called
mm,
my journey for
mm.
hopefully you. So I don't say that
Yeah.
in polite niceties. I really say, if I can be an instrument for you or for anyone that's listening that you
Mm,
serve, then let's find ways to play together and serve together and then just call it work. But this is my season where that's my, it wasn't always my priority because I
mhm.
wasn't there yet, but
Right.
it's my priority now. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you
Great.
do. But more than thanking you for what you do, I really want you to hear me when I say, thank you for how you be while you're doing what you do. I want you to know it does not go missed feeling the energy that you give off and the silent acknowledgement that you give and the honor that you hold. It doesn't go missed, and not everyone will see it, but I see it. You said a couple of things respectfully as a white man that only speaks to respect and acknowledgement of a different journey. And so, not just what you do, but how you choose to be and the homage you choose to walk with, which is a direct effect on how high you will continue to soar. So, I just want to thank you for that and let you know it doesn't go miss from a woman who's, I'm almost 60 and I'm a black woman, almost 60. I've been doing this forever. So we have distance in various ways, and watching you and how you be with that in such a respectful way, in such a spiritual way, in such a sacred way, I want you to know I see the unsaid.
Appreciate it and
Yeah.
appreciate you so much.